All actions that we take as humans are fueled by our internal desire to solve some kind of problem. Say you come home from work and you're super tired, and you can solve this in one of two ways. You can flop on the couch and turn on Netflix, or you can solve this by lacing up your shoes and going for a run. Both of these are solutions to the problem. Whether or not one of them is better than the other is up to interpretation. It's that once you look at your design projects, the lens of problems that need to be solved rather than just a checklist of actions that you need to take, it becomes a lot easier to pick the action that is most productive and solve it best for you and your client. And as a general rule, the more problems that creatives can solve throughout their projects, throughout their career, the more money they're going to make. Howdy, hello, and welcome back to the Creative Channel Podcast. I'm super excited to be filming this episode today, and I'm very grateful for you for tuning in. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to be in your AirPods, your earbuds, your Galaxy Buds if you're a weirdo, or if you're an even bigger weirdo, your Bluetooth compatible hearing aids like myself. So anyway, there's been a lot coming up lately. I've been very busy and managing a full-time freelance business on the side. I'm working primarily with one client right now, and we're running into a lot of problems. And that is the inspiration, as you've probably seen by the title of this episode, is what problems is your creative service solving? And throughout this project that's coming up right now, it started out as graphic design, now it's moving to a little bit of web design, and the next thing I know, I am on a group chat with some merchandise suppliers on Alibaba from China, and I'm trying to negotiate a deal for supplies that can be on the website, specific garments and so forth. So anyway, that's a tangent, but the moral of the story that I've learned so far is that creatives are hired to solve problems, and you have to identify them early and often. And the more I've looked through creativity as a lens of solving some kind of problem and better being able to identify what that problem is, I'm in a lot better position to be able to communicate and just get off on the right track, because it doesn't matter how fast you run, how high you climb, if the ladder is propped up against the wrong building, then you're not going to get there. So identifying these problems early and often. And as I've done my research, I've really narrowed it down to 4 main categories, which was hard because there's a lot of problems in the world, especially in design. But I've narrowed it down to 4 main categories, and I want to touch on each one and how to identify it when it comes up in your creative pursuits. So the first and easiest, you probably guessed it, it's a money problem. And this is what the majority of, freelance creatives, and if you're doing creativity for a career, you're definitely doing some kind of money problem solving, whether it's for yourself, trying to put food on the table, or whether it's for your employer, whether you're trying to execute certain campaigns, do certain designs that convert to increase in sales. And like I kind of already mentioned, and a good example of this would be a marketing campaign that's designed to convert to sales. Companies spend millions of dollars on this, and they hire creatives that create assets like emails, social media, marketing, video, anything that is touched by the consumer. They want to have a creative touch to it, and they want it to lead to conversions. A money problem, this is our first one. The money problem is the most measurable, and it's easiest to objectify because there is a number metric attached to it. It's very goal-oriented, and it's less inundated by opinions because you can track conversions, you can track all these metrics, click-through rate, cost per conversion, lifetime customer value, all these different metrics that you can attach to this one, which makes it very good because if you're in a project where you can create a lot of money, it's easy to add that to your portfolio and take those numbers and really kind of run with them. Now you see people stretch this a little bit, like saying that, a marketing campaign is 100% the reason for all the sales that are made. Just creating these creative assets for a marketing campaign. It's not always the case because there's a lot of things that go into a whole marketing campaign. Maybe the product was super good, maybe it was just right product market fit, and the marketing could have been trash, and you had a great sales team and everything that was executing on all fronts, and everything went over smoothly. So although it is very easy to measure, it's good to know your place. The downside is that this is super competitive and saturated, as you probably can imagine. Everyone's trying to make money. Those are money problems that creatives have to face. The second problem is a functional problem. This could be, and this leans really more into the industrial, creative, product engineering forefront, where people are really interested in convergent type of creativity, meaning they're taking inputs from the outside and they're hired to make a solution that solves the problem of an interaction or a product or something that is designed to reduce friction for the user that can be consumed later. So if an industrial designer or an engineer is hired to improve a product physically, they go through a lot of creative processes to try and make this happen for their client. And I would argue that these are some of the most creative people because there's very little framework in which they operate, right? Because they're trying to do something completely novel that no one else has done before. There is a general workflow for, product design and development and stuff like that. Like if you're trying to design a new holder for a camera or something like that, there are references and there are blueprints that past designers have done that have worked, and you can kind of piecemeal stuff together like that. But it's not the same as where you're using a completely templated software. You're not doing the same thing. It's not plug and play at all. So you really have to have an open mind and really venture into that scary, uncomfortable realm when you're solving functional creative problems. The third creative problem that creatives are hired to face are societal problems. This is a big one. A societal problem is wide and it affects everyone, and everyone knows of it. And it's super easy to identify in a creative work. So say a creative is hired to create a design or a piece of marketing creative that is supposed to evoke an emotion or prompt a reaction for the sake of a common goal. This could be, when I hear of a societal design problem, and I think of something like graffiti or stained glass that's in a church that's beautiful, or the paintings on murals that were for religious purposes, the Sistine Chapel, things like that. These are designed for a collective greater good. They're done in service of what the creative is motivated by, and it's designed to represent something and evoke a certain emotion in an audience. And a lot of them are done for humanitarian or non-profit purposes. They're not done for money. They're done for the collective unification or division of a larger group of people. And for this reason, this type of creative work has to be super powerful, okay? You have to be able to create something that other people can easily identify and relate to. Because if you make something that people can't even identify with, or you use a certain font, or you reference a certain event or something like that that people can't vibe with or they've never seen before, then you've automatically lost that project from square one. So societal problems are kind of difficult, but they're super easy to identify when you see them. Like you can see, stained glass, graffiti, all these things that are art objectively, and they have a very specific targeted goal that they're trying to get you to feel. And societal problems, they are similar to money problems. They're similar to a good marketing campaign in the sense that it's meant to evoke an emotion that prompts action or unity or division. Societal problem is designed much more to create collective action rather than individual prompting of emotion. Like a marketing campaign is designed to get clicks, it's designed to get conversions, it's designed to get people to feel a short-term emotion, whereas a societal problem is designed to create lasting change and be around forever. The fourth and final category in terms of problems that creatives can face are identity and communication problems, and I would argue this is one of the biggest. And it's one of the biggest kind of umbrella terms. So let me kind of unpack this a little bit. When a client or artist is trying to express what an object, organization, or feeling is, and they just can't do it justice, okay? An obvious example of this would be a brand identity, a passion project, something that is designed to pin a label visually on what a thing is, what a business is, what an organization is. It's basically designed to be a funnel from, I guess, what the business is, what the larger thing is, designed to visually condense it down from a funnel and into what the end user sees at a glance. These are logos, these are brand identity, these are assets. They help better to communicate what the user is trying to solve with their money, with their investment. These are the 4 types of problems that creatives face whether they're hired to face or whether they create to create. And it's important to note too that a lot of these can boil down to one another. So I'd really encourage you to take your project, take a step back and see, okay, what am I trying to do here? What am I trying to accomplish? And what are the things that are getting in the way of me accomplishing that goal? And if you can pin one of these 4 labels on them, a money problem, a functional problem, a societal problem, or an identity communication problem, then you can really start to approach your projects with more of a felt sense of direction and where you're going. Because I know in this project I'm doing now, like I said, we've gone in a ton of different directions and I end up doing a lot of different things, which I'm okay with. If you're very strict on doing just a single task, like and you market yourself as a creator for solving one specific problem, you have those guidelines, set up that in your contract and be very open and aware and communicative. That's a big part of solving problems is communication, okay? As creatives, we can't solve stuff on our own all the time. We're working in tandem, like Mr. Jeremy Slagle. We're working in collaboration with the people around us to try and solve these problems because you can't go about this on your own. That's why open communication and asking tons of questions, especially open-ended questions, is crucial for the creation of a successful piece of creative. Getting to the bottom of what you're trying to solve and identifying that so you can take the proper actions, just like in the example I listed earlier. All the actions we take as creatives are designed to solve the problem, and it's so easy to get off track, like I kind of am right now, because I didn't identify the problem in the beginning. Because I didn't do that, I'm solving all these other problems that have came as a result of not being forward-thinking and beginning with the end in mind. James Clear has another great thing he says. I think it really ties into this. He says in his 321 newsletter, which I really recommend you guys subscribe to, has 3 ideas, 2 takeaways, and 1 question for his audience every week, and it's super awesome. One of the quotes that really resonates with solving problems as a creative is he says, "Remove the branches of a bush today and you'll avoid a scrape this year. But next year you'll face the same problem again. Remove the root of the bush today and the entire plant will die." Are you solving problems at the branch level or at the root level? Like I said, identifying these creative problems early, taking the proper actions based on which class of problems. Again, there's 4 classes that I've separated this into: money problems, functional problems, societal problems, and identity communication problems. Identify these as early as you can to have the most successful and fulfilling creative project. A bonus tip that I've really pushed myself to try and do, and I really encourage you guys to do as well, is to ask questions and push back and try and get into the nuance of the specifics of each of these categories. So, for example, if you're being hired to design a t-shirt, okay, something super basic like that, okay, ask clients, okay, why do you need a t-shirt design? You say, oh, because we're a business, we're a brand, we're trying to get our name out there, we're trying to create something that we do not have the creativity or the capability to design and create ourselves. So, okay, you can take a step back from that. You can say, am I solving a money problem? Am I solving a functional problem? Am I solving a societal problem? Or am I solving an identity and communication problem? Odds are you're solving an identity and communication problem and also a little bit of money problem because the client is looking to get their name out there, which can lead to exposure, which leads to sales, brand interest, so forth. But I encourage you to push that even back on the surface grade because that's a super basic example. Say, why do I feel the need to create this artwork for this person, charge this amount, do this task, solve this problem? What is the underlying meaning behind this? Maybe it's because they actually want a merch store because they didn't have custom clothes as a kid, they couldn't afford it. And this is something they really want because they're never able to have a custom creative piece with their logo, their naming, their branding on it. Maybe it comes from a underlying place of insecurity and feeling like the small guy. It's your job to identify that and create the proper design, the proper creative work that fulfills that purpose for them, whether it's for a client or it's for yourself. So to kind of wrap up here, I really encourage you guys to begin with the end in mind and try and identify these problems from the beginning so that you can take the most effective and productive actions towards solving them. Don't be like the tired guy that comes home from work, like we talked about, that turns on Netflix and opens a bag of Cheetos. Not Cheetos. Cheetos are better. I would highly encourage Cheetos. I miss those a lot since I've started eating healthy, and I really miss those. But don't be the guy that eats the Cheez-Its, okay? Be the guy that goes, laces up the running shoes, pops up on an energy drink, and goes on a run, okay? Because that's the long-term win in this situation. Identify one of these 4 problems: the money problem, the functional problem, the societal problem, the identity and communication problem. Look to solve those as much as you can, because I guarantee you problems are going to arise. I've said problems about 1,000,000 times in this podcast, so for that I apologize. But identifying these dilemmas early and often can allow you to solve the next one. And like I said in the beginning, as a general rule, as a creative, solve more problems equals get more money. Thank you guys for listening to entry 9 of the Creative Journal podcast. This is Andy. I'm signing off, and I really hope this helped you guys identify those problems early and often and get them solved and live a good, creative, and fulfilling life. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Creative Journal podcast. If this episode spoke to you, if you like one of the guests we've had on so far, please leave a like or a 5-star review on whichever platform you're listening to. And if you're feeling especially rambunctious and ambitious, leave a comment as well. I do read all the comments. Thank you, and I hope to see you next week for the next rendition and entry into the Creative Journal.